The chair of nails was a method of execution and torture designed to inflict suffering in its most prolonged and agonizing form. Unlike many other instruments of medieval punishment that sought a quick and visible end to life, the chair of nails ensured that its victim experienced a slow, almost unbearable torment. The device consisted of a chair embedded with sharp metal nails or spikes, strategically placed in areas that would cause maximum pain. The victim was forced to sit upon the chair, their body fully exposed to the sharp points which would pierce the skin and flesh with every shift of weight. What made the chair of nails so profoundly disturbing was the sheer length of time the victim was subjected to its torment. Unlike a swift beheading or hanging, the victim on the chair of nails was trapped in their agony, unable to escape. The nails piercing through the thighs, back, and other vulnerable areas of the body caused excruciating pain every time the person moved or adjusted themselves. But even worse was the reality that the victim could not rest. There was no reprieve, there was no comfort. They were forced to endure the pain, hour after hour, minute after minute, as the nails dug deeper with every subtle shift in their position. The nails weren't just there to pierce the skin and muscle. They were strategically placed to ensure that every moment of discomfort stretched into a sustained agony. Victims could not shift their weight or even attempt to rise without increasing the intensity of the pain. The act of sitting, which should have been a simple, natural task, became a cruel exercise in endurance. Each moment spent on the chair felt like a battle against the body's natural urge to move, to escape. But no matter what the victim did, there was no way to find relief. The nails kept them anchored in place, each subtle movement a reminder of the cruelty they were trapped in. This method of slow, prolonged suffering was far worse than a quick execution. The agony was designed to last, sometimes for hours or even days, depending on the circumstances of the victim's punishment. The slow buildup of pain not only broke the body physically, but also shattered the mind. The mental toll was just as significant as the physical, as the victim's body began to grow weak under the unyielding pressure of the nails. The fear of what would come next, the next shift, the next movement, became an ever-present mental burden. Unlike other forms of punishment that offered the victim a quick end, the chair of nails left them to suffer in limbo, trapped in the cycle of pain with no escape. There was no mercy in the device. There was no possibility of release. The victim was left to sit on the nails until their body could take no more, until they passed out from exhaustion, went into shock, or died from the blood loss and damage to their internal organs. The idea behind the chair of nails was not just to punish physically, but to torment the mind. The prolonged suffering was a way to break the spirit as much as it was to break the body. The victim knew they were trapped, knowing that there was no swift death awaiting them. The slow, agonizing process was meant to break their resolve, to push them to the brink of madness, to reduce them to a helpless, suffering shell of a person. What made the chair of nails so terrifying was the anticipation of pain. Unlike other tortures that caused an immediate reaction, the chair of nails kept the victim in a constant state of anticipation and dread. With each shift, each moment of movement, they knew that pain would follow. There was no relief, no way to escape. Only the knowledge that the agony would continue for as long as the torturer desired. In many ways, the chair of nails was not just about physical punishment. It was about the total destruction of the victim's will to live. It was a tool designed to strip away dignity, autonomy, and sanity, forcing the person to face an unending sequence of pain with no end in sight. The victim was reduced to nothing more than an object of suffering, left to endure the torment for as long as the authorities saw fit. The method of slow, prolonged agony made the chair of nails one of the most horrific and disturbing devices ever created, ensuring that its victims would never forget the horror of their punishment. The true cruelty of the chair of nails lay in the absolute immobility it imposed upon its victim. Unlike many other forms of torture that might have allowed for some movement or variation in position, the chair of nails was designed to trap the victim in a fixed, agonizing posture. The sharp nails, embedded into the chair, pierced through vulnerable areas of the body, typically the thighs, back, buttocks, and sometimes the neck or shoulders. Once the victim was seated, their every movement, every shift of their weight was met with unbearable pain, making the very act of moving or adjusting themselves an act of excruciating punishment. The design of the device ensured that the victim was utterly trapped. The nails, placed with disturbing precision, dug deep into the skin, forcing the person to remain upright, rigid, and still. There was no comfort in the chair, no way to relax or shift the weight of their body. The sharp metal points that protruded from the chair's surface created an unyielding cage of pain, keeping the victim's body in a state of complete tension. Every muscle, every tendon, every joint was forced into an unnatural position as the victim was forced to remain fixed, unable to move without triggering further agony. This immobilization was not just physical, it was psychological. The victim could not escape the chair, could not free themselves from the constant suffering. Unlike other methods of torture, which might have allowed a victim to struggle, scream, or attempt to fight back, the chair of nails locked them into a position of helplessness. There was no chance for the victim to resist. The device held them in place, their body restricted, unable to change position or find any relief. Every moment they spent in the chair only intensified their torment, as they were unable to alter the pressure, to adjust themselves, or even to move away from the nails that pierced their body. What made this form of torture so horrific was the relentless nature of the victim's immobility. Victims were forced to endure the pain without any respite. They could not lie down. They could not find comfort. They could not even shift their position to relieve the constant pressure. As the hours or days dragged on, the victim's body would grow weaker, their muscles fatigued from being in a state of constant tension, unable to relax. The physical toll of remaining in one position, rigidly pinned to the chair, would begin to take its toll on the body. The inability to move or stretch caused extreme physical exhaustion, adding to the psychological despair of being trapped in such a painful and unrelenting position. The prolonged nature of this immobility was one of the most insidious elements of the chair of nails. The victim's suffering was not merely a brief moment of pain. It was an extended, torturous ordeal designed to break them mentally and physically. The body could only endure so much before it began to give way. As the victim's muscles grew weak and their endurance faded, the agony became even more intense. The pain was not a quick, sharp strike, but an ongoing, gradual torture. Each second spent in the chair was another second of pain, another second of unyielding pressure on the body, forcing the victim to endure a slowly increasing level of suffering. The immobility was also a tool for submission. When a person is forced to remain in one place, unable to move, unable to find a way to relieve the pressure, they are left to face the psychological effects of total control. The victim's will was crushed with each moment of forced immobility. They could not fight back, they could not scream, move, or attempt to escape. The chair's design was not just about physical pain, it was about total domination over the victim's body and mind. The victim was reduced to an object of suffering, completely under the control of the torturer. As the hours passed, the victim was left with no way to escape the pressure of the nails. The pain became a constant companion, gnawing at them both physically and mentally. The inability to move or adjust the body caused a profound sense of helplessness. Unlike other forms of punishment that may allow the victim some agency, however slight, the chair of nails denied them even the smallest opportunity for escape. This total immobility forced the victim into a state of complete submission, leaving them to endure their torment with no chance for reprieve. In the end, the immobilizing nature of the chair of nails was as much a psychological weapon as a physical one. The victim's body was broken not only by the nails but by the utter lack of control. Their suffering was not just about the agony inflicted upon them, but about the mental toll of being rendered completely helpless. The chair of nails ensured that every moment of pain was compounded by the psychological strain of knowing that there was no way out. The victim was trapped, not only in a chair of nails, but in a cycle of torment that lasted as long as the torturer chose. While the physical torment inflicted by the chair of nails was unmistakably horrific, its true power lay in the psychological terror it created. Unlike many other forms of punishment, where the victim's suffering was immediate and visible, the chair of nails was designed to instill a different kind of terror, one that was sustained and drawn out. The victim was forced to endure not only the piercing pain of the nails, but the constant, unbearable anticipation of pain with every subtle movement. Each shift of the body, each attempt to adjust, caused the nails to dig deeper, resulting in an unrelenting and unpredictable cycle of suffering. The victim's mind became ensnared by this constant awareness, leading to a type of mental torment that was as profound as the physical pain. One of the most terrifying aspects of the chair of nails was that it trapped the victim in a state of continuous uncertainty. Unlike methods of execution where the end was clearly imminent, the chair of nails kept the victim in a state of suspended horror. They could not know when the pain would end, or if it would end at all. The extended nature of the torture, often lasting hours or even days, meant that the victim's suffering was prolonged, giving them ample time to contemplate their fate. This constant state of unknowing created a psychological horror that added another layer of fear to the already excruciating physical pain. The immobility enforced by the chair meant that the victim had no choice but to endure their fate. Unlike other forms of punishment where the victim might be able to escape, move, or even resist, the chair of nails denied them any means of coping with their agony. This sense of helplessness created a psychological burden that weighed heavily on the victim's mind. They could not fight back, they could not change position, and they could not escape. The very lack of agency amplified their sense of vulnerability, making the experience even more terrifying. They were at the mercy of their torturer, their suffering dictated not by any action on their part, but by the cruel design of the device itself. The psychological torment was compounded by the constant intense awareness of the nails digging into the skin. Each tiny movement would shift their body against the sharp points, causing an immediate sharp pain. The victim's mind would fixate on this constant discomfort, with no opportunity for mental relief. The inability to move or adjust meant that the victim's awareness of their own pain never waned. The suffering was not a fleeting moment. It was a constant creeping presence that was always in the victim's consciousness. This unrelenting agony left no room for escape, no relief, and no hope of respite. The victim's mind would begin to unravel under the strain as the body was tortured and the mind was forced to focus solely on the overwhelming sensation of pain. What made the chair of nails even more terrifying was the anticipation of the pain, because the victim was forced to remain fixed in place, unable to move. The tension built with every second. The psychological horror came not only from the physical pain but from the victim's awareness that any moment of movement would increase the agony. This sense of dread, the ever-present knowledge that any slight motion would cause the nails to dig deeper, created a mental pressure that added to the physical weight of the punishment. The victim was trapped in a cycle of anticipation and fear, unable to control the situation, unable to predict when or how the next wave of pain would hit. The device's psychological effects also lay in the way it isolated the victim. In some cases, those subjected to the chair of nails were left alone in their suffering, abandoned in silence. This isolation added a mental layer to the physical torment. The victim's thoughts, their panic, their desperate cries for mercy, everything was internalized. They were left to experience their suffering alone without the distraction or relief of human contact. The mental isolation was as much a part of the torment as the nails themselves. The victim was not just physically tortured, they were mentally imprisoned in their own pain, trapped in a psychological nightmare with no escape. Over time, the victim's mind would start to break down. The pain was no longer just physical. It became a mental force, an overwhelming presence that dominated their thoughts and emotions. In some cases, victims who survived the ordeal reported lasting psychological scars. The experience of being immobilized, unable to move or escape the sharp pain, left a permanent mark on their psyche. The constant awareness of their vulnerability, the lack of control, and the relentless anticipation of suffering shattered the victim's sense of self. The psychological terror was not just about the immediate effects of the torture. It was about the long-term effects on the victim's mind. The torment of the chair of nails was not simply a momentary horror, but a mental endurance test that stripped away the victim's sense of control, leaving them to live with the memories of their suffering long after the physical wounds had healed. Survivors of the chair of nails, if they were lucky enough to survive, often carried with them the mental scars of their ordeal, haunted by the terror of being trapped in a chair of relentless, unyielding pain. In this way, the heretic's fork was not only a tool for physical punishment, it was a method of mental domination, one that broke down the victim's will to resist. The victim was forced to live within their pain, unable to escape, unable to cry out, and unable to find relief. The true horror of the chair of nails lay in the fact that it left its victim with no escape, no way to escape the physical torment, and no way to escape the psychological terror of being completely immobilized in a constant state of suffering. The chair of nails was more than just a device for inflicting pain. It was an instrument of public humiliation, designed not only to punish, but to degrade the victim in the eyes of society. The victim, often accused of heresy, treason, or other perceived crimes, would be forced into the chair and displayed for all to see, a living testament to the consequences of defying the authority of the ruling power. Unlike other methods of execution or torture, which might be private or swift, the chair of nails made the victim's suffering visible, ensuring that their pain became a public spectacle and a warning to others. The public aspect of the chair of nails was deliberate. The victim was placed in a position of total vulnerability, their body exposed and immobile. The nails dug into their flesh, forcing them to remain upright, unable to move or shift their weight in any way. As the torturer's instrument of power, the device was not merely a way to cause pain. It was a way to strip the victim of their dignity and turn them into an object of spectacle. The victim's suffering, while physical, was also deeply social. They were not allowed the privacy or dignity of a private punishment. Instead, they were forced to endure their torment in full view of others, a public display of their perceived wrongdoing, and a warning to those who might consider following in their footsteps. The effect of this public humiliation was twofold. First, it intensified the victim's suffering. Not only were they being physically tortured, but they were also being stripped of their privacy and subjected to the cruel gaze of the public. The shame of being displayed in such a vulnerable and painful position compounded the agony of the nails piercing their flesh. The victim could not escape the eyes of those around them. Their pain was no longer private but a spectacle for all to witness. In this way, the chair of nails became not just a tool for physical punishment, but a psychological weapon designed to break the victim's spirit by forcing them to suffer in front of an audience. Second, the public display served as a powerful deterrent. By subjecting the victim to public humiliation, The authorities ensured that their punishment would be witnessed by others. The suffering of the victim was meant to serve as a warning to anyone who might consider defying the established order. The chair of nails turned the victim into a symbol, not just of punishment, but of the consequences of disobedience. Their suffering was not just personal. It was political, social, and ideological. It demonstrated the power of the ruling authority to impose pain, suffering, and shame on those who threatened the status quo. The public humiliation inherent in the chair of nails was particularly effective in societies where fear of punishment and the desire to avoid social disgrace were powerful motivators. The act of being publicly tortured was often more terrifying than the physical pain itself. The victim was not just an individual being punished. They were made into an example for the entire community. The message was clear: defy the church, the crown, or the authorities, and you too could find yourself bound to the chair, enduring a fate worse than death in full view of your peers. This spectacle had a profound psychological impact on the society at large. It instilled a deep fear, not only of physical punishment, but of public disgrace and social isolation. The public nature of the chair of nails also served to reinforce the power of the authorities who wielded it. The device was not just a means of punishing the individual. It was a tool of control, a way of displaying the power of the state or the church to punish and humiliate those who stepped out of line. By forcing the victim to endure such a painful and humiliating ordeal in public, the authorities demonstrated their absolute dominance over the body and mind of the condemned. The victim's suffering was not only a reflection of their crime, but also a statement of the ruler's power to impose shame and punishment on anyone who dared to challenge their authority. The chair of nails was a device designed to humiliate the victim in ways that were not immediately apparent. While the pain it inflicted was excruciating, the true horror of the device lay in the way it stripped the victim of their dignity and made them the object of public scorn. By turning the act of punishment into a public spectacle, the authorities ensured that the victim's suffering was not just a private matter. It was a social event, a message to the community that disobedience would be met with the full force of the state. The victim's pain was not just physical. It was a psychological and social humiliation that would linger long after their ordeal ended. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of this public humiliation was that it was not reserved for criminals alone. Anyone who found themselves on the wrong side of authority could be subjected to this fate, regardless of their actual guilt. The chair of nails was a tool used not just for punishing heretics or traitors, but for maintaining control over the population. It sent a clear message: challenge the powers that be, and you would not only suffer physical pain, but be subjected to the ultimate degradation in the eyes of your peers. In the end, the chair of nails was more than just a tool of physical torture. It was a mechanism of social control designed to enforce obedience through public suffering and humiliation. The device ensured that the victim's pain was not private, but exposed for all to see, turning their torment into a political and social event. It left the victim not only physically broken, but publicly shamed, a symbol of the power of the authorities to strip away their dignity and make them a spectacle of fear. The chair of nails may have been used centuries ago, but its legacy of fear and control continues to resonate in the darkest corners of history. While the device itself is no longer in use, its memory endures, serving as a grim reminder of how power can be wielded through both physical pain and psychological subjugation. The lasting impact of the chair of nails is not just in the stories it left behind, but in the terror it inspired and the way it became a symbol of the lengths to which those in power would go to assert their control over the bodies and minds of the vulnerable. The legacy of the chair of nails is inseparable from the fear it created. Unlike other forms of punishment, which were often swift and visible, the chair of nails inflicted a kind of lingering terror. It was not just the pain of the nails, but the prolonged agony, the isolation, and the humiliation that made it so terrifying. The victim could not escape. They could not move. They could not cry out in relief or protest. They were trapped in a slow, unrelenting cycle of pain, where every shift of their weight drove the nails deeper into their flesh. This sense of prolonged suffering, coupled with the psychological torment of immobility and isolation, ensured that the chair of nails left an indelible mark on the mind of both the victim and any who witnessed the spectacle. For those who lived under the threat of the chair of nails, the mere knowledge that such a device existed was enough to instill fear. The possibility of being subjected to such a cruel and public form of punishment was a constant reminder of the power the authorities held over them. The fear of this fate was not just about the physical pain, it was about the humiliation, the helplessness, and the lack of control that accompanied the experience. The fear of the chair of nails spread throughout communities where people understood that to defy authority meant not just facing punishment, but enduring public shame and suffering. The psychological impact of the chair of nails did not end with the victim. The very act of subjecting someone to this torture was designed to send a message to the larger population. The spectacle of someone being forced to sit on a chair of nails, immobile and in agony, was not just an execution. It was an example, a lesson for others. It showed the full extent of the ruler's power to dominate, control, and break anyone who defied their authority. The public nature of the punishment meant that others could see the consequences of dissent. This lingering threat of suffering ensured that the legacy of the chair of nails lived on, even after its physical use ceased. The chair of nails is a powerful symbol of the abuse of power, where the ruling authority sought not just to punish, but to instill terror in the populace. The legacy it left was one of fear, not just of the physical pain it caused, but of the total loss of autonomy and the degradation of the human spirit. The victim was reduced to a mere object of suffering, stripped of dignity and helpless in the face of the device's unyielding cruelty. This psychological and emotional toll made the legacy of the chair of nails far more enduring than just the physical scars it left behind. Even as societies moved away from such brutal methods of torture, the chair of nails' legacy lived on in the form of historical reminders, literature, and the collective consciousness. Stories of its use were passed down, and its image lingered as a symbol of the cruelty that those in power could inflict upon the helpless. The device was not just a tool of torture, it became a symbol of oppression and control. The fear it instilled was not just about physical punishment. It was about the power to humiliate, to isolate, and to break someone both physically and mentally. It was a reminder that authority, when unchecked, could go to extraordinary lengths to suppress dissent and maintain its control. In modern times, the chair of nails continues to serve as a dark reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty and the lengths to which power can go to maintain dominance. It is a historical marker, but also a warning, one that echoes through time about the dangers of absolute control. Its legacy is not just in the history of torture, but in the psychological effects of its use. It shows how fear can be wielded as a tool of power, and how the legacy of such fear can linger long after the device is gone. It reminds us of the importance of safeguarding human dignity and rights, ensuring that history's darkest tools of torture and subjugation are never used again. The chair of nails is no longer a physical presence in our world, but the fear it represented, the message it sent, and the horrors it inflicted continue to reverberate through history. Its legacy lives on as a chilling testament to the power of fear and the psychological and physical toll of control, subjugation, and cruelty.